The refugee camp sprawled across the barren plain like a wound on the landscape. Thousands of makeshift shelters housing the displaced survivors of the Felinar War. Dr. Marcus Webb moved through the chaos with practiced efficiency, his medical bag slung over one shoulder, stopping to treat injuries and illnesses that the overwhelmed camp clinic couldn't handle. 3 months he'd been here now, volunteering with the humanitarian relief organization. 3 months of watching families torn apart by war try to rebuild something resembling normal life from nothing. He'd seen a lot in that time, but nothing had prepared him for what he found in Shelter 47B. The shelter was barely more than salvaged metal sheets propped against each other, gaps stuffed with cloth to keep out the wind. Inside, huddled on a thin blanket, was a Felinar female clutching 2 tiny cubs to her chest. The Felinar were a feline-descended species, humanoid in structure but covered in soft fur, with delicate features that combined human and cat characteristics. This female's fur was a rich orange gold, though now matted and dull from malnutrition. Her ears were pressed flat against her skull in distress, and her golden eyes held the kind of desperation Marcus had learned to recognize immediately. She was starving, and so were her cubs. "Please," she whispered in heavily accented standard, her voice weak. "My babies, they need. I can't." Marcus knelt beside her, moving slowly to avoid startling her. "I'm a doctor. I'm here to help. May I examine you?" She nodded weakly, her arms trembling as she held the cubs. The examination confirmed what Marcus had suspected: severe malnutrition, dehydration, and complete exhaustion. The female was literally dying, her body consuming itself to try to produce milk for her cubs. But there was nothing left to give. The cubs, perhaps 3 months old by his estimation, were in even worse condition. Their tiny bodies were skeletal, their fur patchy, their breathing shallow. "When did you last eat?" Marcus asked gently. 4 days, maybe 5, the camp rations. There's never enough. I give mine to my cubs, but I can't. My milk has." She couldn't finish, tears streaming down her face. "They're going to die. My babies are going to die, and I can't stop it." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. He'd seen death in the camps. It was impossible to save everyone. But these cubs, this mother who was literally giving her life trying to feed them. "What's your name?" he asked. "Zaralyn." Her voice was barely audible. "Princess Zaralyn of the northern provinces. Not that it matters anymore. The war took everything, my home, my family, my people's land. Now it's taking my cubs. A princess." Marcus looked at her more closely and saw it. Despite the malnutrition and despair, there was a refined quality to her features, a bearing that spoke of better times. "How long have you been here?" 2 weeks, since the final evacuation from the northern provinces. The enemy was closing in. We barely escaped with our lives. And the cub's father, Zara's expression crumbled. "Killed 3 months ago defending our city. He never even saw his children." Marcus made a decision. "Come with me, now. We're getting you to the medical center." "They can't help. I've been there. They gave me vitamin supplements, but there's no food for proper nursing mothers. The supplies are stretched too thin. They said, she swallowed hard. They said I should consider putting my cubs in the orphanage, that they'd have a better chance with bottle feeding and formula. But there are 50 cubs in that orphanage already, and only enough formula for 30. They're choosing who lives and who dies, and my cubs, they're weak, they'd be at the bottom of the list. They're not going to the orphanage, Marcus interrupted. And you're not dying today, trust me. He helped her stand, supporting her weight as she cradled the cubs. She was lighter than she should be, her bones too prominent beneath her fur. At the medical center, Marcus bypassed the overwhelmed front desk and went straight to the senior physician, Dr. Sarah Chen. Sarah, I need your help. Private room, IV fluids, and whatever nutritional supplements we have. Sarah took one look at Zara and the cubs and didn't argue. 20 minutes later, Zara was on an IV drip, pumping fluids and nutrients back into her depleted system. This will help, Sarah said quietly to Marcus outside the room. But it's not enough. She needs weeks of proper nutrition to recover her milk production. We don't have the resources for that kind of long-term care, not with 3,000 refugees and supplies running low. What about formula for the cubs? Marcus, we're rationing what we have. I can probably spare enough for a few days, but after that, she shook her head. You know the situation. We're doing triage. I hate it, but we have to prioritize cases with the best survival odds. And 2 cubs with a desperate mother doesn't qualify. A mother who's too weak to care for them properly, and cubs who are already severely malnourished. No, I'm sorry, I truly am. Marcus returned to Zara's room and found her stroking her cubs gently, humming a soft melody that might have been a Felinar lullaby. The cubs were too weak even to cry, just making small mewling sounds. Doctor, Zara looked at him with those desperate golden eyes. Can you help them? Marcus sat down beside the bed. I can help. But it's going to require something unconventional. Anything, I'll do anything. It's not what you'll do, it's what I'll do. He took a breath. I'm going to take you and your cubs out of the camp, bring you to my living quarters in the relief worker compound. I'll provide food, shelter, and care until you recover enough to nurse properly. Zara stared at him in shock. Relief workers aren't allowed to take refugees into their housing. It's against regulations. I know. You could lose your position, be sent home. I know that too. Why would you risk that for strangers, for aliens? Marcus thought about how to explain it. Because I became a doctor to save lives, and I'm looking at 3 lives I can actually save. The system has failed you. The regulations, the supply chains, the bureaucracy, none of it is helping you or your cubs survive. So I'm going to work outside the system. But forever, the title said. Zara looked confused, exhausted. One step at a time, Marcus said gently. First, we keep you and these cubs alive. Then we figure out the rest. Getting Zara out of the medical center was easier than expected. Sarah Chen saw what Marcus was planning and simply looked the other way, making sure security was distracted when he helped Zara to his vehicle. The relief worker compound was a series of prefabricated buildings, functional but comfortable compared to the refugee shelters. Marcus's quarters consisted of a bedroom, small living area, and kitchenette, luxurious by camp standards. He settled Zara on the bed with her cubs, then raided his personal food supplies. Within an hour, he'd prepared a high-protein meal using powdered supplements, preserved meats, and the nutrient-dense rations meant for relief workers in the field. "Eat," he commanded gently. "All of it. Your body needs to rebuild." Zara ate slowly at first, then with increasing desperation as her starved body recognized real nutrition. She finished everything, then looked at him with wonder. "I can feel it already, the fullness. It's been so long. It'll take a few days before your milk production recovers fully." In the meantime, Marcus produced a bottle of specialized formula he'd quietly requisitioned from the medical supplies. "We supplement with this." He showed her how to feed the cubs with the bottle. They were so weak they could barely suckle at first, but gradually, with patience and gentle encouragement, they began to drink. Watching the tiny cubs feed, seeing their small bodies gradually relax as their desperate hunger eased, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in months of working in the camps: hope. "What are their names?" he asked. "Kira and Tomas," Zara said softly, stroking their heads as they fed. "After my parents. They were killed in the first wave of attacks when the war began. They're beautiful. They're alive because of you." Zara's voice cracked with emotion. "Dr. Webb, I don't know how to thank you. Marcus, just Marcus. And you don't need to thank me, just focus on recovering." The first week was intensive. Marcus maintained his normal schedule at the camp clinic, but every spare moment was spent ensuring Zara and the cubs had everything they needed. He brought food, medicine, supplies. He monitored Zara's recovery with professional care, tracking her weight gain and milk production. But something else was happening too, something less clinical. In the evenings, after the cubs were fed and sleeping, Marcus and Zara would talk. She told him about her life before the war, growing up in the palace, learning statecraft and diplomacy, the responsibilities of royalty. She spoke of her late mate, their brief happiness before war tore everything apart. Marcus shared his own story, growing up on Earth, the decision to become a doctor, the years of study and training, the growing sense that practicing medicine in comfortable hospitals felt hollow when so much suffering existed in the galaxy, the choice to join relief organizations, to go where help was needed most. "You gave up a comfortable life," Zara observed one evening. "Safety, stability, probably good income, for this." "I did." "Why?" Marcus considered the question. "Because comfort felt like a prison when I knew people were dying from preventable causes. I couldn't enjoy luxury knowing that my skills could save lives elsewhere. It felt wrong." Zara looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You're a strange human, Marcus Webb. I've been told that before." By the second week, Zara's recovery was remarkable. Proper nutrition and rest had transformed her. Her fur regained its luster, her eyes brightened, and her body began to fill out to healthy proportions. More importantly, her milk production had returned to normal levels. The cubs were thriving, growing stronger daily. But as Zara's health improved, a new problem emerged. What happened next? "I can't go back to the refugee camp," Zara said one evening. "If the authorities find out where I've been, you'll face consequences. But I can't stay here indefinitely either. Eventually, someone will notice." "I've been thinking about that," Marcus said. "There are Felinar settlements in the Southern Territories, neutral zones established by the peace treaty. If I could get you transport there." "No." Zara's response was immediate and firm. "No, I won't leave you, Marcus, not after everything you've done." Marcus felt his heart rate increase. "Zara, you need to think about what's best for your cubs. The Southern Territories would be safe, stable, and you won't be there." She met his eyes directly. "Do you think I haven't noticed? The way you care for Kira and Tomas like they're your own. The way you've sacrificed your resources, your time, your career prospects to keep us alive. You've been more of a father to them in 2 weeks than most males are in a lifetime. I'm just doing what's right. You're doing far more than that." Zara stood and walked to where he sat, her movements graceful despite recent malnutrition. "Marcus, I need to tell you something. In Felinar culture, when someone saves a mother and her cubs, provides for them, protects them, there's a bond that forms, a debt of life. You don't owe me anything. It's not about debt, it's about recognition. You've acted as mate and father without holding that position. You've given us everything without asking anything in return." She paused, gathering courage. "I want to ask you something, and you can say no without any obligation." "What is it?" "Stay with us, not just until I recover. Forever, become my mate, become father to Kira and Tomas, build a life together." Marcus stared at her, his mind reeling. "Zara, we barely know each other. This is—" "You've seen me at my absolute lowest," she interrupted. "Starving, desperate, terrified. You fed me, cared for me, treated my body's ailments without ever being inappropriate or demanding. I've watched you with my cubs, seen the gentleness and patience you show them. What more do I need to know? I'm human, you're Felinar. The cultural differences are irrelevant. Love doesn't require perfect cultural alignment. It requires commitment, compassion, and choice." Her ears flicked forward, a sign of determination. "I'm choosing you, Marcus, if you'll have us." Marcus thought about his life before this moment. The loneliness of relief work, moving from crisis to crisis with no permanent connections. The satisfaction of saving lives, but the emptiness of having no life to return to when the work was done. He looked at the cubs sleeping peacefully in their makeshift nest, their tiny bodies healthy and strong now. He looked at Zara, this princess who'd lost everything but fought desperately to save her children. He thought about the word forever and realized it didn't scare him. It felt right. "I'm not prince material," he said quietly. "I'm a relief worker with minimal savings and no permanent home. I'm a princess with no kingdom, no wealth, and no prospects. We're equally disadvantaged." She smiled slightly. But together we have something more important than titles or money. What's that? Each other, and two beautiful cubs who need parents who love them. Marcus stood and took her hands in his, feeling the soft fur, the delicate bones that had been too prominent just weeks ago. I've never been a father before. I don't know if I'll be good at it. You're already doing it, Marcus. You've been their father since the moment you decided to save us. Zara's eyes shimmered with tears. The question is, do you want to keep doing it forever? Marcus pulled her close, feeling her warmth, her steady heartbeat. Yes, he said simply. Forever. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the small dwelling he'd built on the outskirts of the Felinar settlement in the Southern Territories. It wasn't much. 3 rooms, simple furnishings, built mostly from recycled refugee camp materials and local resources. But it was home. Zara moved around the kitchen, preparing their evening meal, humming that same lullaby she'd sung to the cubs that first desperate day. Kira and Tomas, now healthy, energetic 6-month-olds, tumbled around the floor, playing with toys Marcus had fashioned from scrap materials. He'd resigned from the relief organization, facing the expected reprimands for violating regulations. But his supervisor, understanding the full story, had helped him secure a position at the settlement's medical clinic. The pay was modest, but it was enough. Zara had found work teaching Felinar history and culture to refugee children, helping them maintain connection to their heritage despite displacement. It gave her purpose beyond survival. Together, they'd built something neither had expected: a family, a home, a life. Marcus, Tomas called, holding up a toy shuttle. Make it fly. Marcus scooped up the cub, lifting him high and making engine noises. Tomas's delighted laughter filled the room. Kira tugged at his leg. Me too, me too. He lifted her with his other arm, both cubs shrieking with joy as he spun them around. Zara watched from the kitchen, her expression soft with contentment. Dinner's almost ready. Don't get them too excited or they won't eat. Yes, ma'am, Marcus said, setting the cubs down gently. That night, after the cubs were asleep, Marcus and Zara sat on their small porch, looking up at the unfamiliar stars of this world. Do you ever regret it? Zara asked quietly. Giving up your career, your comfortable life for this? Marcus thought about the question seriously. His former colleagues were probably in climate-controlled hospitals right now, earning substantial salaries, building conventional careers. He looked at the simple dwelling behind them, at the sleeping cubs visible through the window, at Zara's hand in his. Not for a second, he said. I traded comfort for purpose, solitude for family, a career for a life worth living. That's not a sacrifice, it's an upgrade. The mighty human warrior, Zara teased gently, who conquered a princess's heart with nothing but kindness and milk formula. Is that what the stories will say? The stories will say a human found a desperate mother and her dying cubs, and instead of following regulations or protecting himself, he chose love. He gave us everything: milk for the cubs, hope for the mother, and forever for all of us. She leaned against his shoulder. That's the story I'll tell Kira and Tomas when they're older. How their father chose us when the whole world had given up. Marcus wrapped his arm around her, feeling the completeness of this moment. He'd come to the refugee camp to save lives, never expecting to find his own life's purpose in Shelter 47B. But that's exactly what he'd found. Not just refugees to help, but a family to love. Not just a crisis to solve, but a future to build. The cat princess had come to him seeking milk for her cubs, desperate and dying. He'd given her that and so much more. And in return, she'd given him forever. It was, Marcus thought, the best trade he'd ever made.